Am I the a-hole for humiliating my aunt by saying I never dated her son? My grandmother got a hold of me this afternoon to let me know that there is a lot more to this story. My auntie is from the US. She's not from a foreign country with a foreign culture. It's a lie she made up in college to seem more interesting. My mom has been in on the lie from day one. Even my dad didn't know that my auntie was actually the same girl who grew up a few doors down from my mom. Now, this is a big problem, because my auntie runs a minority-owned business, and that's where my mom is employed. So now this is in legal territory. As for Sonny, I really don't know what he believes, but I suspect that his mom cooked up our relationship and was hoping that after my divorce, I'd make her betrothed from birth declaration play out, which would of course reinforce her fake persona. My mother's longtime best friend has been my aunt for as long as I can remember. When I was 16, she moved near us and her son started attending my school. From day one, he seemed to think he was dating me. My aunt and my mother both pressed on about how sweet it would be if we were Victoria's childhood friends. When we didn't date in high school and I went to college, this chatter went away. The truth is, I barely know this guy. We played together on beach vacations as little kids, because we were the only kids in a group of buzzed adults. He wasn't even a great playmate. As we got older, it was more and more apparent to at least me that he had some sort of issue. My own theory, albeit this is an armchair theory, is that he's autistic and hasn't gotten any therapy or treatment to help him navigate the world. Anyway, my mom had a barbecue a few weekends ago, and I came with my boyfriend. My aunt came with her son. After my boyfriend and I sat down, my aunt came over and asked who my friend was. I explained he was my new boyfriend. She sighed and asked how I could do this to her son. My response was along the lines of what? She launched into how she understood we were on a break. But showing up at a party with my revenge guy was a low blow, especially since everyone knew we'd get back together. It wasn't fair to my flavor of the month to pretend like I was available, and she knew how hung up I was on her son. I know this sounds insane the way I put it, but she seemed so genuine that it was very convincing. My boyfriend was visibly shocked. I had no idea where this came from, so I said, Auntie, Sonny and I have never dated. I took him to one casual dance as a kindness. I don't know what he's told you about our relationship, but the reality is we say hi on Facebook sometimes. She accused me of saving face in front of my boyfriend. He left, and I freaked out. I told her, very loudly, that this is psycho, that I am not, and never have dated her son, and that he's really, truly, utterly undateable. I don't know a single girl who would date this boy. She had just assumed that I'd go along with this crazy narrative that would somehow insulate her from dealing with that reality, but I wasn't going to. Then I left, and was lucky enough to catch my boyfriend before he left, so I had a ride home. She and my mother sent me emails explaining that she was humiliated in front of her longtime friends, that I had no business saying that in public to her. I can see now that it would have been better to pull her into the kitchen or the house and explain this to her, since I now think it's possible her son was feeding her lines, and she was really shocked, and I did say some hard things. My aunt accused me of cheating on her son who I never dated. I called her a psycho. Some people have said that I was screaming that my aunt's son was undateable. I did not scream, and in fact, several people at the party didn't even know there was a commotion. While I was loud, we were also close to a table full of the sorority sisters that make up my mom and aunt's friend group. Also, he really is undateable. I've tried to help him set up profiles, and have even tried to set him up on a date with a few of my friends who I think might really get along with him, but it's been a disaster. After my boyfriend and I sat down, my aunt came over and asked who my friend was. I explained he was my new boyfriend. She sighed and asked how I could do this to her son. My response was along the lines of what? She launched into how she understood we were on a break, but showing up at a party with my revenge guy was a low blow, especially since everyone knew we'd get back together. It wasn't fair to my flavor of the month to pretend like I was available, and she knew how hung up I was on her son. LOL what? NTA. She is openly trying to sabotage your relationship doing this, because in her mind you're somehow betrothed to her son. Even if the kid wasn't autistic, you're not interested, and this isn't the Middle Ages where you arrange marriages. It seems your mom also has a case of the "we were best friends, when we grow up our kids will be best friends and get married, and we'll officially be family" syndrome that most people grow out of before they have kids, or when the kids are young. But some cling to it, no matter how their children feel about it. But your mom needs to give up on the fantasy and have a talk with her friend. She should put some boundaries up or not expect you to be around your auntie ever again. Because you shouldn't have to deal with her trying to sabotage every relationship you ever have. It would be good to also find out if her son or anyone else is lying to her about the dating, being on a break, being hung up on him stuff. And if someone is saying that to her, cut them out of your life. Block them on social media and so on. If it's all just from auntie, then she's extremely deluded, and it's best to stay away from her. Because if she has no reason to think any of that, it would be hard to get her to see reality for what it is. You don't owe her an apology. While it would be considered polite to have taken her somewhere private to talk, she lost the right to that bit of politeness when she ambushed you and said all of that in front of your boyfriend, and she didn't care if her sorority friends heard what she said about you. So, she can't reasonably expect you not to defend yourself and explain the reality of your relationships in the same place and manner as she. Went to school with the son, and he assumed they were dating. He must have made that clear somehow with words or actions that could have constituted harassment to her, or at the very least, an awkward and upsetting situation of unwanted attention, when she had given him no indication of interest. And it would be distressing for her to think that was over, then find out that he had continued it behind her back, presumably, unless the aunt made it up completely on her own. But the son having this delusion before, and then the aunt also acting as if they had a relationship, seems to indicate his involvement. It doesn't really seem like he had nothing to do with the situation when he has a history of assuming Op is in a relationship with him without actually asking her. His mother shares responsibility due to her refusal to acknowledge reality and get him help, but assuming he was completely uninvolved doesn't seem to fit with the context of his history. He wasn't the one who said something this time, but might have been saying something to his mother that led to this. Undateable might seem harsh, but I can see how Op panicked as this issue she thought she had left behind in school suddenly reoccurred and increased in severity, and despite her previously polite attempts to extricate herself from the situation, she was publicly accused of lying and cheating, to the extent her real boyfriend was scared away. She was provoked to a reaction that made it clear she would never consider dating the son, as anything short of that to save the family's feelings was ignored. She is the one being targeted here on multiple occasions by multiple members of this family. I actually had something sort of similar happen. Many years ago, I got an extra ticket to a play and posted on Facebook, "I have this extra ticket, would anyone like to come with me?" This guy responded. I didn't know at the time, but I did find out later he was autistic. I didn't know him well, but we had met a couple times through mutual friends at parties, so I figured whatever. If he sucks one-on-one, most of the evening is taken up by the play anyway. I said sure, ticket is yours, and he asked if I wanted to grab dinner before, and I said yeah, why not? The evening was fine, we had dinner, split the check, went to the play. Then as we were waiting to take the train back to our respective homes, he said, "Well, I think this was a really good first date." I was kind of taken aback, and I said this wasn't a date. I don't solicit my dates over Facebook. Granted, now Facebook has some dating extension, but at the time it did not. We kind of laughed it off at the time, and I forgot about it. Years later, I found out from my ex, who was in the same friend group, and my current BF, that he had come to both of them individually at some point, and either directly said we had dated, slept together, or heavily implied it. When I asked a few other friends about it, they said, "Oh yeah, he's been saying it for years, but no one really believes him." I'm still pretty pissed. NTA. She intentionally humiliated you and jeopardized your real relationship. While she might have been taken in by her son's lies, she chose to call you out about it very publicly, rather than questioning you privately, so she can't complain that your reaction was also public, when that's how she chose to start the conversation. And although undateable might seem harsh, the way you put it at first was very polite, and then she pushed you further by accusing you of lying to save face in front of your boyfriend, causing him to leave. Also, it might be the shock she needs to realize that she bears some responsibility for not getting her son support to deal with his social issues when he was younger, instead of ignoring it and indulging his delusions. The person she needs to be addressing this with, probably by urging him to go to therapy, is your son. She is still having a go at you to avoid the real issue.